The first day of university. I had imagined it in countless ways, 1,000 different versions of how it would unfold. I thought I would walk in with confidence, ready to conquer the world, to make my mark. But now, standing on the campus, surrounded by unfamiliar faces and towering buildings, I felt small. A tiny speck in the vast ocean of students. It was early, the morning still crisp with the remnants of a summer that had yet to let go. The sun was soft, barely over the horizon, casting long shadows across the quad. The campus buzzed with life. Students rushed from one building to another, their laughter and conversations mixing with the rustling of leaves in the trees. The noise, the energy, it all felt overwhelming. I adjusted my backpack, tugging at the straps nervously. My palms were sweaty, and my heart raced in anticipation of the day ahead. This was my dream. I had worked so hard to get here. I had spent countless nights studying, researching, preparing for this very moment. But standing here, in the midst of it all, I felt like I didn't belong. The large lecture hall where my first class would take place loomed ahead. I stood outside for a moment, watching the students gather near the doors. There were groups of friends chatting, laughing, and pulling out their notebooks. A couple of them made eye contact with me, but I quickly looked away, not knowing how to approach them. I took a deep breath and pushed the door open, stepping into the cool, air-conditioned room. Inside, rows of desks were arranged in neat lines, and the murmurs of students filled the space. I chose a seat near the back, as far away from the front as I could manage. I didn't want to draw attention to myself. The last thing I needed was to be noticed. As I sat down, I took out my notebook, pretending to write something. But in truth, my mind was a blur. I couldn't stop thinking about how out of place I felt. What if I didn't make any friends? What if I couldn't keep up with the coursework? What if everyone else was smarter than me? I was so lost in my thoughts that I didn't notice the person who sat down next to me until they spoke. "Hey, is this seat taken?" A soft voice pulled me out of my reverie. I looked up and saw a girl around my age, with bright eyes and a warm smile. She had a calm energy about her, something that immediately put me at ease. "No, it's free," I said, forcing a smile. "You can sit here." She nodded gratefully and slid into the chair next to mine. For a moment, we sat in silence, both of us looking around as the professor entered the room. The lecture began, and the day moved forward, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was different about her. There was a quiet confidence about the way she listened, the way she took notes, the way she interacted with the others around us. She was calm, unbothered by the rush of the first day, and for some reason, that gave me comfort. When the lecture ended, she turned to me, her smile brighter this time. "So, how was your first day?" she asked. I blinked in surprise. "Oh, it's overwhelming, to be honest." "Yeah, I get that," she said with a chuckle. "It can feel like a lot at first. But it gets better, trust me." "Thanks," I replied. "I'm Emma, by the way." "Nice to meet you, Emma." "I'm Sarah." Over the next few weeks, I found myself spending more and more time with Sarah. She was easy to talk to, someone who didn't judge and always listened. We would meet after class, grab coffee, and talk about everything and nothing. She was a breath of fresh air in a world that still felt so new and intimidating. Sarah had this way of making everything seem simple. When I expressed my concerns about the overwhelming workload, she would laugh and say, "You'll find your rhythm. Just take it one step at a time." And, somehow, when she said it, it felt like everything was going to be okay. One afternoon, we sat on the steps outside the library, the late afternoon sun warming our faces as we talked about our plans for the future. Sarah had a passion for social justice and was determined to make a difference, while I, on the other hand, wasn't quite sure what I wanted yet. But that was okay. Sarah didn't pressure me to have all the answers, and that gave me space to figure things out on my own. I used to be just as unsure as you, she said one day, her voice soft but steady. But it's okay not to know. The important thing is that you're here, that you're learning, and that you're growing. Her words stuck with me. That day, I started to see the university experience differently, not as a race or a competition, but as a journey of self-discovery. And with Sarah's support, I began to embrace the unknown, to be more open to new ideas and experiences. It wasn't just the words that had an impact on me, though. It was the way she made me feel like I wasn't alone in this journey. I had someone who understood, someone who saw me for who I was. And that, in itself, was a gift. As the weeks passed, our friendship deepened. There were still moments of uncertainty, of course, but now I knew that I had someone to share them with. Someone who made me laugh when I felt down, someone who encouraged me when I doubted myself. Sarah had become my anchor in the sea of newness that was university life. One evening, as we were studying in the library, Sarah turned to me with a thoughtful look on her face. "Emma, do you ever wonder how we ended up here? Like, all the little things that brought us to this moment?" I thought for a moment before answering. "Yeah, I do. It feels like fate, in a way." She smiled softly. "Maybe. Or maybe we're just in the right place at the right time." I met her gaze, a strange flutter in my chest. For the first time in a while, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. And in that moment, I realized that the connection I shared with Sarah wasn't just about friendship. It was something deeper, something I couldn't quite put into words. The semester was drawing to a close, and the campus had taken on a different feeling. The days were shorter now, the leaves on the trees turning shades of gold and red, and the air had a crispness to it that made me think of autumns from my childhood. I walked across the quad one afternoon, feeling the weight of the semester settling in. The stress of exams, the pressure of the future, it all seemed so overwhelming. I spotted Sarah sitting on one of the benches near the fountain, her head bent over a book. She looked up as I approached, and a smile tugged at the corner of her lips. "Hey," she said. "You okay?" I paused for a moment, not sure how to answer. I had been carrying so many doubts with me about my abilities, about my future, about everything. But Sarah's presence, the way she always made me feel grounded, made me realize something. I wasn't alone in this. And I didn't have to have everything figured out right now. "I think I'm starting to get the hang of this whole university thing," I said, sitting down beside her. "But it's still a little overwhelming." She nodded, understanding. "It always is. But you're doing great, Emma. You've come a long way." I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me. "Thanks, Sarah. I wouldn't have made it this far without you." She reached over and squeezed my hand, a small but meaningful gesture. "We're in this together." In that moment, I realized just how much I had changed. I had come to university uncertain, anxious, and unsure of myself. But now I was growing. I was learning. And, most importantly, I had found a connection that went beyond simple friendship. Sarah had taught me that it was okay to not have all the answers, to not know exactly where I was headed. The journey was what mattered. As the sun set behind the trees, casting a golden glow over the campus, I felt at peace. I wasn't the same person who had walked into this university months ago. I was someone who had learned to embrace uncertainty, to trust in herself, and to value the connections she had made along the way. And as I sat there with Sarah, I knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in my life, one where I would continue to grow, to discover, and to learn, not just about the world around me, but about who I was meant to be.